Indy Mogul.
Hey everybody, I'm Justin and welcome to First Films, the weekly podcast where we delve into the hidden origins of filmmakers and creative types. With me today is the Lord Commander, creator, host, much requested guest here on the podcast, Ryan. How do you say your last name? Connolly?
Connolly, yeah.
Connolly,
Some people say cannoli, like I'm a dessert, which I can be pretty sweet.
I'm well known for my Italian last name guests, so, is that Connolly would be perfect in that case.
Right. But instead, it's Irish.
So if you guys have been living under a rock, Film Riot has been around for a very long time, same as Indy Mogul, and it's in the same vein of DIY. I know you guys do a lot of digital effects. I feel like Indy Mogul has always been kind of a little more like the buildy side, and you guys are kind of the computer-y, effectsy side. And how long has Film Riot been around now?
I think we're going on 8 or 9 years. I think it's 8 years. I think.
That's a long time. And internet years are like dog years, so you just multiply that by 7.
90. It's 90 years. Pretty much going to die soon.
And you guys started off with our sort of like Next Few Networks, like quasi competition. I mean, it was, 9 years ago. I like to think of it as competition.
Rev 3 or Film Riot?
Revision 3. And then I think there also is like kind of a fun,
It was funny, like when I got onto Rev 3, when they reached out to me, I guess because I was doing a show on my own through YouTube. So I was all up on YouTube, but I had no idea what an MCN was. I had never heard of one in my life. And I hadn't heard of Rev 3 at the time, but a friend, I guess, submitted our show or something to someone and they ended up seeing it and getting and I'm like, what's this Rev 3 thing? This sounds shady.
I mean, it wasn't even really an MCN back there. I mean, it wasn't even, that term didn't even really exist. It was just like a company that's doing internet video and one of like 3. I don't know how many, not that many.
Totally. Yeah. So it was so new to me and I'm like, what is this again? Explain. So they had to be like, it's like the NBC of the internet. I'm like, oh, okay. Okay. I'm down with that. Yeah.
That makes sense. And congratulations on your 1 million subscribers. That's huge. We are slowly crawling our way there.
We're getting there. You're right there.
Like 50,000 away. So we're getting there. And I think it's also kind of fortuitous for you to be on the podcast now because I saw that for 1 million subscribers, you went back and posted like your original like pilot for Film Riot, but it's called Making the Film.tv or what was the...
It was terrible. That's what it was.
I'm Ryan Connolly, and welcome to Making the Film's first mini-sode. That's right, mini. It's not the full ones yet. They're coming, but since we had such a great response from you guys, we were able to partner with some big companies, add some contests, and some other really great stuff you're going to love. But in the meantime, we decided to do some mini-sodes to answer questions you guys had on in-camera effects and other tips and tricks.
It was
still pretty good. It still looked... I remember watching that. That must have been posted as the first episode, and just... I mean, even then, like your green screen's great, and I feel like there's a lot going on. It's you got your shadow on the wall.
Yeah, it's like, why did I put a shadow on the wall?
Because you could, Ryan.
Because you could. That's
right. Because computers said you could.
That was back when it was like I did it all on like this crappy laptop to start with because I was a nomadic filmmaker. I was just everywhere all the time. Yeah. I didn't really have one base of operations. So I would be, in my car, in my parents' house, at my friend's house. So I was doing it all off this laptop. And to do green screen I would just have to pick one frame, make a change and wait. Oh, okay, that looks good. And then make another change and wait.
Or you put it on the mode where it's just like the little boxes if you want to move things around.
Right. Yeah. And then it was like, I would have to start, exporting the green screen out like 3 days in advance because it would take about a full day just to bounce that out so I could start editing the episode.
And then something I'm sure was invariably messed up.
Oh, that was the worst. Our actual first episode of Film Riot ever, my hard drive crashed and I lost the entire episode.
Oh God.
Like 2 days before it was supposed to be the premiere. And they had put all this marketing out. There was like stuff written about it. Like it wasn't like, hey, I can be late. So I went in and I was able to find all the cache render files and I rebuilt the episode from all of that.
Were they low res render files?
They weren't full res.
Okay.
So the quality is kind of wonky, but it worked and we released our first episode on time.
But we're talking like internet 2008, 2009. So that's it was okay. It wasn't even really widescreen. Wasn't even a thing yet. I mean, YouTube was still 4:3 for probably till 2010 or something.
Was it? I think when we started doing, because we didn't do YouTube right away. So when we first went up, we were just doing Rev 3. I had to like push for it because I started on YouTube and that's what I liked. I liked the instant feedback. I liked the community that it built, being able to see what the views were, the comments, and interact. So I had to push for that for a while, being like, hey, let's put the episodes on YouTube. And it took a little while, and then they finally, yeah.
I feel like you guys Rev 3 was really more all in on the Rev 3 platform, and then also podcast, like putting it out as a video podcast.
Exactly. Yeah. So it took a while of me being like, we need to be on YouTube. And then we finally were. And then it took forever to be like, hey, we need to shift up to 1080. Like, what is this 720 crap? That took like a year.
Oh, man. Yep. That's what happened. I remember one comment on Indy Mogul I'll never forget was, I think we had a widescreen video inside of a 4x3 box, and someone just commented, full the screen.
Full the screen.
And I was like, that was just kind of a running joke. We're just like, Eric, full the screen. All right, full the screen. Whatever that means, full it. It's not full enough. So we're gonna hop into the first film's time machine. Associated post-production sound effect. And let's go back pre-YouTube, pre-Film Riot. We're going way back. Where did your the beginnings of your love of filmmaking, and especially, I mean, so much of the technical side, how did it all start? When did you first get your hands on a camera, and what did you create?
It was, I always say 8 years old. My mom says it's earlier than that, but I always say 8 years old. That's kind of when I can remember it, but maybe I was younger than that. I don't know. But I remember just my dad bringing home a video camera and then me being like, what is this? And then I actually remember looking through the viewfinder, and this is how I put it all the time because I just remember it so vividly, just looking through the viewfinder and grasping the idea of, I can make everybody see exactly what I see. Because I was already like really big into entertaining. So I had like this like chest full of like costumes and props and stuff, and I would put on little shows for my family, like I'm sure most of us did. But it was always like frustrating for me because I'm like, I don't think they're seeing it how I'm seeing it. It's funny to me because of how I'm seeing it. So once I got the camera, I was like, oh man, I could like literally force them to see it exactly how I see it. And then I just started making stuff to sort of tell jokes. I loved making my dad laugh. So I'd make these sketches and I'd show it to him and he would think it was funny. And then I really dug like darker stuff like ghosts and whatnot, but I wasn't really allowed to watch those films, but I loved them. So I would sneak and watch like, He-Man and Mighty Max and Gargoyles and stuff like that. Like anything that was darker that I could get my hands on. I was like, yes. I remember watching Freddy Krueger and my parents didn't know on TV.
Oh man.
But it was like way edited down. But I wasn't, my parents were pretty strict about all that stuff, so I wasn't allowed to watch any of it, but I could make it. So I was always like trying to make ghost stories and things like that. But then, which is probably why I have such an affinity for it. I saw Jurassic Park when I was like 11, and I had never had an experience like that. Cause again, I wasn't really allowed to watch movies like that. So for me, that was a full on horror movie.
That was scary. I mean, it's PG-13. So, yeah. That would be, you're 2 years younger than the 13.
Totally. But luckily I was like huge into dinosaurs. So once that trailer came out, I was freaking out about the movie. So my parents let me see it, not knowing what it was. So I looked out big time. If they would have seen it before, I never would have been able to see it. But it really did like inform, years to come. Because it was just that interaction that I had, that emotional connection that I had to the movie, like what it was able to do for me and make everything else melt away and like really make me concerned for the safety of the people that I was watching was something I never experienced before. And that had a huge click in my head. So I became obsessed with that and obsessed with who's this Spielberg guy. And then figured out,
there's a point as a young filmmaker when you realize what a director is.
Right. And that's what it was.
I just like movies are just movies and like they're their own entity. And then when you realize like someone's making decisions behind the scene and you're like, oh, I can see other movies that someone's made and I probably will like them. It's really a pretty big experience for a young filmmaker.
Yeah, for sure. And that was like the first time that I was like, somebody gave me this experience and it's this Spielberg dude. I need to know everything about him. So then I became obsessed with Spielberg, learned that he was a director, and I was like, well, that's what I need to do. I need to be a director. So then after that, it was just making whatever I could, whenever I could, emulating, Jurassic Park or Mission Impossible, movies that were really influencing me at the time.
What were some of those early? Do you recall any specifics from any of those early films? Were you taking like directly lifting the plots of these movies, or did you have your own little twist on them?
No, I would. It was more. Funny enough, I didn't really like try to recreate anything. I would take ideas from it, like De Palma's use of the Dutch angle I became obsessed with and I was doing constantly. Spielberg's pacing or how he would reveal something, or the dolly move, or things like that. I would take that and try to emulate that. And I would always, my older brothers and sisters were totally not into it, probably because they didn't want to look dumb on camera. They did when they were younger, but once they got a little bit older, they totally weren't into being in my movies anymore.
So you were younger
brothers
and
sisters.
Okay, so you're in the middle.
Yeah, no, I'm dead middle. Yeah, so I had some younger brothers and sisters. So I had like 9-year-olds running around with fake guns shooting at each other and doing Mission Impossible stuff. And I remember I had these fireworks and I would break the fireworks open and I would pour like the gunpowder on the ground to try to get the Mission Impossible like stream happening, which probably wasn't the safest thing in the world.
Did it work?
Yes, it worked. It totally freaking worked. It was great. I was like, this is amazing. This is it. But yeah, it was a lot of stuff like that. And then, my parents put us in youth group, and because before it was just that and maybe some kids around the neighborhood that would do some stuff with me. But for the most part, I think it was looked at as pretty nerdy because I did it by myself for the most part and with my little brothers and sisters. So I don't think it was like a cool thing. Now it's like a cool thing to do. At the time, I don't think it was really a cool thing. I don't think I cared either. But then I joined youth group and then started doing videos for that, and then it became a cool thing because by that time I was able to start doing a little bit of visual effects. So I was doing stuff with the software I had that you couldn't really do. Like I remember I would take like a still from the video. It was like just a shot of a van, and then I would take that shot of the van, freeze frame it, bring it into Photoshop, cut everything out, like cut the door off, cut the wheels out, make them all their own layers, then bring that into Premiere. And I had like 20 layers, and then I just edited them independently. Yeah, and I made the van blow up. And it looked horrible, but at the time, everybody in the youth group was like, "Oh my God!" I was just like, "Yes." But that was one that was like
the van blows up, and it's like, "This is why you shouldn't sin," and they're like, "This is real."
Actually, what's funny about those videos is I never had like a Christian message in any of them. I just wanted to entertain, but they totally let me do it because it was like, the kids there loved it, so I guess they were cool with it. But I would even do like vulgar stuff. I had like drug references in some of them. Like there was totally a stoned character in one of them.
Wow.
And I never got in trouble. I would do like blurred fake nudity. I would bleep curse words type stuff. It was very much like, it was pretty close to what Film Riot has always been, but a little more tamed down. And I think I got in trouble one time because I showed a pair of underwear. And I got in trouble.
It's like Hitchcock showing a bathroom in
right. And all I could think of was all the things that I've done, and this is what you're mad about. Like I've made penis jokes, like alluded to things, like, and no one's ever said a word. This is why you're mad. But
you literally put something on screen that says "buy drugs from me" and then had your phone number.
Yeah, totally.
Like, this is
one character is totally stoned the whole time, has the munchies, talks about grass. No one said a word. But underwear is out.
It's funny. I wonder how many, because so many origin stories I think start with a teacher who said, yes, you can do a video assignment. I think that's very core. But what's funny is that I did the same thing where I did videos for youth group. Yeah. And that was even prior to doing them for school. And I think I was that same like regular funny guy, make a funny thing. And, it's completely unrelated to anything religious. But actually, my friend just reminded me this of a couple weeks ago. The last video I was allowed to make was probably the most Christian. It was like based in this Bible verse that's like, as a dog returns to its vomit. And we just like had a friend's dog like eat a bunch of like vomity looking dog food and then reversed it back.
And they're like, you're done.
That was it. I was done. I wasn't like, I didn't pre-screen any of these to the youth pastor. It was just like, they trusted me, I guess, at that point. And that was it.
What were they thinking? We're teenagers.
We are going to do something bad. And but it was that kind of, a couple things I think were really great about that. One, it was the fact I had an audience, captive audience, and you get to experience the reactions in real time.
Yeah. Did it work? Did it not work?
And then the other thing was, you learn so much about editing and just, kind of the tropes of making something that an audience reacts to. And then the second thing was the regularity. Every Wednesday, I knew I had to make a video for youth group.
Mine was Wednesday too. What's with the Wednesday thing?
That's like youth group time. It's middle of the week.
What? Who chose that?
Well, no one, I mean, Friday, come on. You're going to decide between like going out and doing real teen stuff or the weekend. No, Wednesday is like, the lamest. It's like the Lord's Day if you're under 18.
Totally. But those were kind of the beginnings for me. I think everything that came before youth group was kind of a training ground to be able to do the stuff that I did for youth group. And then youth group was really dialing in, like you said, like pacing, not knowing the word for it, but knowing like, hey, I took too long to get here. I lost them. This joke's not hitting. Why isn't it? You know what? I bet you if I would have shown a shot of this first, they would have got it. Yeah. So being able to sit the immediate reaction of, they're not laughing or, oh, wow, I actually made them jump with that hit there. Stuff like that really was like week to week being able to try and Film Riot is a lot like that too. To where it's like, week to week, I have to do something. And I've always looked at Film Riot as, I know because, especially in the beginning, it was straight up like borderline one-man thing. I had people helping me out, but I was doing all the editing, all the writing, almost all the visual effects. At one point, definitely all the visual effects. In the very, very beginning, for the first like 8 episodes, I had a little bit of help, but then after that, it was just literally me. So I knew like the quality that I was going to be able to produce in that time frame was not going to be super great. So it was like, okay, this has to be really entertaining, but to benefit myself as well, it was like I was always picking something that would be, this is what I'm going to focus on and try to figure out, hey, I bet you if I did this sort of camera work for this sort of sketch, it's going to feel like this and it's going to do this to the audience. Like stuff like that, to where I was always trying something new every week without fail. So instead of being really mad that it's not hitting the full level across the board of, what I want this to be quality wise, at least I'm constantly learning something small. And I still do that. And, it's been really, really beneficial. And then you have that instant feedback of it, if it worked or didn't in the comment section. So it's kind of like a new version of what was happening in youth group.
What moment did you transition from just kind of doing video for fun? Do you remember that your first video-based paycheck? Did you make a van explode for a wedding video or anything like that?
I remember, I don't know what the first one was really. But I did a couple things. Like I did some local commercials. I remember that I did a local commercial for this piano shop. It was so bad. It was like as bad as you'd think. Like the ones that are made fun of now by like Tim Merrick.
They're supposed to be bad.
Oh man, it was so bad. And the guy was like, "Come down to Jim's piano shop." Like it was that level of awesomeness. And then I did some wedding stuff for a minute where I worked for someone. It wasn't like my thing. I wasn't editing or anything like that, but I did a couple of them and I was like, I can't do it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with wedding videos, especially nowadays. There's a lot more creativity, and art to them now for sure.
People expect more creativity. I think they want more of like, they realize, I'm not going to watch my whole wedding. Make a cut down in a beautiful way that I can actually enjoy.
Yeah. And they look really nice. And, but at the time, it was exactly what you think it was. And I just didn't have the attention. Like I legitimately have ADHD, so I didn't have the attention span for it either. So it was like, I would lose track of what was happening. And I almost missed the cake cutting one time. I almost missed I think I missed the beginning of the father-daughter dance for another one. And I was like, I'm not going to do this anymore. And I just stopped.
And you would you go to Full Sail?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's in Florida.
Yeah. I went in 2004. So that was back when it was like a 12 or 15 month. Now it's like 2 year plus, I think. But at the time it was even faster than it is now.
That's a pretty good era because I feel like 2004 is when the technology was just really starting to come into its own.
Yeah. Our class was one of their first like HD digital cinematography classes. And they didn't even have very good like digital cameras. And that was even when people were like, there's no way that there's going to be digital cameras that'll compete with film. No way. And I'm like, yeah, that'll never happen. Look at the Viper. Ugh, horrible. Now
the Viper. God, I haven't thought about that for years. So you were all in on film. You were all about it, and you.
Yeah, in film school, that was the main thing. Was film. We shot on 16 and we shot on 35. So when I left, I thought for sure when I was going to do my films, it was going to be on film. And then about 2-3 years later, I was like, I guess not.
Once you did 3 episodes of Film Riot on film, you're like, this might be too expensive.
It
is Film Riot, you know? You have film in there, so you haven't forgot about it.
Totally. I really dug Full Sail. It was like, I looked around for a while of where to go, and I just didn't, for better or worse, my thought process was I didn't want someone to tell me how to tell a story, how to tell a character, how to convey that to an audience. I just wanted to know where the buttons were. I wanted to know the technical aspects of filmmaking. I wanted to know the terminology. I wanted to be on something that was like a set to get that experience with a crew and make that stuff at that level with the proper gear, and then go off and start crafting my own, my own style. I didn't want to be influenced in that way. So that's why Full Sail made a lot of sense to me. And I wanted something where it was like, I didn't want to go and do like 8,000 courses or that I had no interest in. I wanted to go somewhere where I could focus purely on the one thing that I wanted to do, put all my time into that, and then go out. And then I found out how intense the school was, and how it was like basically 24/7 schooling. And that was even enticing to me because it was like, from everything I hear, that's what the industry is like. So, that's going to be a nice training ground too. So I really liked it. And, it gets a bad rap. Obviously I went in 2004. It was 2017. So even then it got a bad rap, but it was like day one, during orientation, they tell you you're going to get out of this school what you put into it. If you're lazy, in the end, you're going to be upset. Because there's just no time for it. And I took that to heart, and I went with my cousin. It's all we did. We slept, breathed, ate, school and film.
I mean, you're in Orlando, so, what else are you going to do? I lived in Orlando for 2 years.
There's a lot of stuff to do there. It's like a little
really.
It's got a little party scene apparently. Like we never went to, but you also go Disney and Universal right there, and then you got the 2 colleges right there. So you got all the crazy college kids. So there was a lot going on.
You have no knowledge of.
Not for us.
If your youth pastor is watching or listening, you have no knowledge.
Drugs, so much drugs.
I learned it from youth group.
I learned it from you. Okay. But yeah, it was just, for me, it was like, people would be like, hey, we're going out. And we're like, okay, we're going to study. And if we didn't have like studying to do, or we weren't making our own thing, in our apartment with the cameras we already owned, we were watching films and watching commentaries and reading whatever we could and quizzing each other. So it's just all we did. And I would go to labs. I tell this all the time because it still blows my mind. I would go to labs and you'd have like a 3-hour lab. For instance, we have a 35mm camera there to mess with, rolls of film, mess with loading, unloading, looking at all the mechanisms, practice hand holding and all that stuff. And to me, this is the greatest day of my life. So it's only mandatory to stay there for an hour. After an hour, people are leaving. So it would always end up being like me and the lab instructors. That's it for at least the last hour and a half of the lab, every time without fail. Which always blew my mind. I'm like, you're paying for this. And then at the end of the year, they all complained, and me and my cousin loved it. And we're just like, you left the second you had a chance to.
Wow. I love that lesson of you kind of get out what you put into it. It's almost like that law of thermodynamics. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction.
Totally.
And that's something that I really believe in for projects. The more energy you put into something, the more, it's not guaranteed, but I feel like in one way or another, you're going to get that energy back. And so I think that is a sort of a tip I haven't really covered on this podcast yet, but it seems like something that is, you really took that to heart, correct?
Yeah, totally. And I mean, it's like you said, that's the rule of absolutely everything, and that's what I've tried. It hasn't even been like, man, look at my work ethic. It's just, I love filmmaking so much.
You can't help it.
I can't help it. So it's like, there's never been any half-assing. It's either, that's the best I could do. That's the most time I had a deadline, or, whatever. It was never like, I don't want to do it anymore. And that just blew my mind about that stuff. But that was just the work ethic I took to everything afterwards. And I think that's what helps you succeed. It's the moment that you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to go I have a quote that I've been saying since the beginning is just like when people ask me about, should I do filmmaking? I always say like, if you're not so passionate that you would rather live under your car or under a bridge than not do this, then find something else. Do this as a hobby because it's just, it is that. Like I've worked 100-hour weeks for the majority of my professional career. And I remember earlier in the Film Riot days, because I was full-time at Alienware and running the video studio, and I just started Film Riot, which was also full-time, because now we do Film Riot pretty quickly. You get into the ring of it. You learn how to do it very fast, and you become so experienced with it, you can knock things out really fast, even ideas. But at the time, it was a full week of work. Like, it was a full-time job on top of my full-time job. So in the beginning, I was well over 100 hours a week. I was into like the 120s hours a week. 7 days a week. And I'm not, it's no BS. And that went on every single week without fail, without breaks, for well over a year, to where I started getting sick and I had to figure something out. It was like, okay, I can't keep this job anymore. I need to either, jump ship and, go full-time Triune and just go for it, or rope this back and do this. So I had to quit because I couldn't do it anymore. It was just too much.
You must be able to look at those old episodes and just kind of, see how tough it was on you. It's tough to be on camera,
I got to find a few episodes and send them to you, because now that you know that, you'll be like, aha, I see it.
I see the light behind your eyes slowly fading.
Because there was at least once a week in the beginning, not for, probably for close to a year. It was every week without fail. I would go at least 2 days without sleep, sometimes 3 days without sleep.
Oh my God.
And then once I even quit Alienware, it got worse for a second, because now I had to figure out how to make money plus do Film Riot. So I wasn't just doing a job. I was also having to find those jobs and then, broker all of that, be the go-between and the creative. And I got this gig where I was doing this whole 3D marketing bit where I was basically, I think they thought I was a production company of like 5 or 6 people, but it was literally me. So I was doing,
Triune, there's got at least 3
totally.
of you.
And it was this like global gig where it had to be translated into 5 different languages. And it was a huge ordeal. And I only had just Stark. I hired on Stark. I'm like, hey, you have to help me with this with 3D. And it was for him too. We did not sleep for the longest time. I remember at one point I'm sitting at a kitchen table, because that's where I had everything set up. My friend let me live with him because I couldn't afford an apartment anymore. So he let me live with him. So I'm sleeping on his couch or whatever. But we had just a kitchen table, and he let me turn that into my office basically. And I'm sitting around that, and it's like 4 a.m. I haven't slept in literally 3 days, other than more like doing that. I would do what I would call Newton naps, where I would take a spoon and put it in my hand. I read about it, and I would hold my hand to the side of the chair, and I would let myself doze off. And the second I doze off, I would drop the spoon, hear the ding, I'd wake up and get back to work. And it actually worked. It actually helped. But then it got to the point where I'm like editing, and I'm like, I'm dying. And then I see someone walking in the kitchen. So I'm like, hey, could you make and no one's there. And I'm like, huh. And I try to go back to working, and I swear this like little fairy thing dances across my keyboard, flies up over the monitor, and flies away. And I was just like, time for a nap, I think. So I just went up, and I had to go. And when you start hallucinating, it's time for a nap.
So when I was in high school, because being a good Christian kid, I didn't want to do any illicit substances. But I still wanted to get a little messed up. So I
don't sleep, man.
I didn't sleep for over 2 days. And I remember telling my parents, bless my parents for being so down with my weirdness. I was just like, you know what? I'm just not going to sleep for a few days. Right. And I found this like trucker caffeine, like caffeine pills. And they were just called Awake. It was just Awake ! And so I just had these trucker caffeine pills, and I stayed up. And it was that same experience. I remember walking the dog at like 3 or 4 a.m. just around the block to do something, because I think I rented a bunch of movies, and I just was up for days just to see what would happen, And I remember seeing like that same kind of like little fluttering white, like a moth, and I'm just like, oh, the sky was like changing colors. The sky was changing colors, and I was like, it's working. And then I was sick for like a week.
I'm so stoned.
And really, it's like, that's so much less healthy than
Totally.
probably doing drugs. You know?
Yeah. But around those hallucinating days, I can still find I'll have to find the episodes and show it to you because I'm just like, welcome to Film Riot. It's like clearly I'm not doing.
You're like holding up a sign that says "Please send help."
yeah. But it definitely got to the point to where it was just like it was not healthy anymore, and I was like physically starting to feel it, and I was like, okay, I need to not do it like this anymore. And now every now and again, I definitely have to go. I just had to do it for a project that I was working on. That's where it's been announced. I can talk about it. It's the Ghost Recon short film that's coming out.
Great.
I worked on that with my friend. I edited and stuff, and there was definitely days where it's like with that recently, I had to go like 2 days without sleeping. But now it's just like I can't do it anymore. I'm not even old. I'm only 34. And now it's like my body's like, nah.
Yeah.
You're not
I feel
24,
like once you've made those sacrifices once, you kind of get it. And I think it's, it's that been there, done that sort of
Totally.
thing.
Where it used to be like I would go that long without sleep, be like, ugh, I feel horrible, but whatever. Now it's like, if I have to do that, I'm wrecked for 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, it's crazy. So kids watching this, these are the types of fun experiences you get to have when you're following your dreams.
This is what
it's
you
almost
get to look
like
forward to.
When people ask, about like, I'm considering going into filmmaking. It's almost like you shouldn't even be asking that question because it should be just be so obvious.
100%. If it's not I have to do filmmaking, I don't know, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At least to the level that, that we're wanting to do it where it's like literally you want to make your films.
If you need like a Venn diagram,
right.
then it's just like...
It's like if you want to be a part of a crew, even if you want to go PA, man, that stuff is like, that's exhausting. That's a lot of work and it's very little it's zero thank yous, and you just get peed on. But if you don't love it, like, man, some productions that I've done is just like you get treated like crap, but you just keep going because it's a learning experience and it's on to the next thing. So it's like, I don't know. I think people are just like, yeah, I want to make Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah, but do you know what it takes to get there? I mean, I'm not even halfway there, but even getting here is like, there's a lot of just getting pissed on. There's, a lot of not sleeping. It's crazy.
And I think what's interesting for you guys as well is that, I mean, did you ever expect that you were going to become a teacher in a lot of ways? Was it always, I think you really have to have that love of teaching to do it because Eric's much better at it than I am. And I feel like you just have to have a constitution to be able to do that. And, it seems like kind of different.
I never thought that was me. I've always been sort of an insecure person, not very egotistical in any way, never thinking I'm the one with the answers. And let me tell you how to do this, which is very evident in how like we present things. Like even in the beginning, our opener was like, you want to make films? Me too. Let's figure it out. Sort of, hey, I don't know. Let's do it together. I guess. Hey, let's try this.
Yeah.
But not saying that you need to be egotistical to be a teacher, of course. Now I'm horribly egotistical. I'm such a douche. No. So I never thought that I had answers. So I never assumed that I would be someone who was a teacher. But it just ended up falling into that because there were some friends who wanted to be filmmakers, but there was no way they were going to be able to go to film school and they didn't know where to go and they were getting really discouraged about it. And that kind of gave me the idea of like, man, there's not a ton of stuff out there. It's like, there's definitely like a pocket that we could fit in to start doing this thing. And, there's definitely an altruistic aspect of it of just, it'd be cool to help people with information that I wish I would have had when I was 15. Not being like, hey, advanced filmmakers who already know what they're doing, here's how you could do it better. No, it's like how, you're 13 and you just saw Jurassic Park and your mind is blown. Here's some stuff that, can get you going. Cause I'm sure you had the same thing. There was nobody, there were no books, there were no videos, there was no one who knew filmmaking. I had no idea what I was trying to figure out okay, so I know what editing is, but what do I use for editing? And I'm looking at A/B switchers like, is this what I need for editing? Like I had no clue.
2 VCRs, man.
Dude, I did that. VCRs and then a CD Discman into one to add your soundtrack.
Exactly.
There you go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I dropped the knowledge of the CD Discman going into the audio input on a prior podcast, and they were just like, "You can do that." I'm like, "That's
of course you can do that."
And when you're putting in a soundtrack and you're just like burning it straight to tape and the music syncs up perfectly, it's one of those magical moments. You're just like,
totally,
it's perfect. And that's happened on several occasions.
I'm a god. I started with just Walkmans, just tape. And then when CD Discmans came out, I was like, nice technology. But
Exactly.
now it's like, what blows my mind is like, that's where we started with doing it that way. Now you have Hit Film 4 for free, which is like a baby premiere in After Effects to get set for free. It's just like,
I think that
what?
YouTube and the internet and YouTube has really changed the way people learn. I have a friend, her name's Olga, and Olga K. She's got a great YouTube channel and social following, but she came to America from Russia. She was a juggler, and she came from Russia, from a little village in Russia. I think it was through the circus, and that's how she got into America.
Wow.
And she says that nowadays kids are so much just kids, regular, they're not professionals or anything like that. Nowadays kids are so much better at juggling because they have YouTube to learn and also like see what's possible. And so she says that's really changed something like juggling. And so even an obscure thing like that, filmmaking now with tools that kids have, I mean, oh my gosh, I do feel very lucky that we came up when we did, because it's that great transition between the old kind of analog world and the digital world, and we got to see it. I mean, I edited public access, and it's the existence of public access being my first venue, besides youth group. I think that's really special, and kids these days will have that same transition in some form, but what's really exciting is the tools they have now. Actually, even like looking at user submissions from Indy Mogul in 10 years ago versus what people can do now that are just fans, it's pretty incredible.
Crazy. Yeah, and it's like something I always try to preach, and advice that I'm always giving is like when people are sending me these really long shorts that they're clearly trying to spend a bunch of time on technically, and I'm just like, ignore all that. Don't worry about it. Just make something really, really short, and then make something else really, really short, and then make something else really. Don't worry about telling this huge thing. Worry about like, are you engaging your audience, and then build on top of that. Whereas like I feel like when we started, there was no other option. Is like you had a camera with all automatic settings, and then it's also like, why does this look so bad? Well, it's because it's overexposed, but we didn't know what overexposed was. Whereas now you can just YouTube it, and it's telling you exactly how to expose properly to get a cinematic
100 videos, 100 different ones.
Whereas back then it was like, man, why doesn't this look cinematic? Let me try this now. Let me try this now. Let me try this. So there was a lot of self-taught. Is that better? Is that worse? I don't know. I'm definitely not that. When I was a kid, I had to crawl uphill both ways.
What you're saying, Ryan, is that we're legit and everyone else.
You guys suck.
No.
I mean, there's definitely like, I think I think the upside is being able to alleviate the woes that we had, that the hurdles that we had to get through to quickly just be able to focus purely on engaging an audience in a pretty professional way at 13, is kind of amazing, because then you get that audience and you get that experience like we had at youth group where you're getting people looking at your stuff. And I mean, I've seen stuff from there was this like, I think she was 15-year-old director, and her stuff was better than stuff that gets sent to me by like college students that are in film school. And I'm like, holy crap. So it's like, these young filmmakers, because I think no matter what, the cream's going to rise to the top. No matter where we're at, we could bitch and complain about like, oh, it's so easy for kids now, or, oh, it's so hard for us then, or they don't have the stuff they need, or whatever. It's like talent is talent regardless of what you're using. And I think that's going to find its way no matter what. No matter what the landscape is, I think talent always has a flashlight to find the correct path. You know what I mean? and
to find other people to notice the talent.
Totally.
I see things come in, and I'm just like, oh, you're really good. And that's what's been cool about we're featuring people on Saturdays for a Saturday morning special, a new thing we're doing on Indy Mogul, and seeing a video and being like, this video has like 100 views. It needs to have 10,000. Let's put it on the channel because it's it's special. There's something special there. It's a great place to be in.
Yeah, and there's even been people where because people send you stuff all the time. Hey, can you watch my short film and whatnot? And I watch everybody's that they send me, and I always respond. But there's always like a few people that are like, there's something extra there, and then you just keep an eye out on them. And that happened with somebody who now works for me.
That's the secret. Hire the people that are better than you while they're younger, and then
that's how I make short films, man.
Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's been really great to catch up. There is a very intense Indy Mogul Film Riot rivalry, but we're putting that aside for this hour. to put on a good face.
It's all love from my angle until you stop recording, and then I got some things to say.
Yeah. Okay. Good. That's what I was hoping to hear. And where can people find you on the internets?
YouTube.com/Film Riot is the best place to go, and then you can pretty much find all our social channels and everything by going there.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you, Ryan. If you enjoy this podcast, please subscribe over at indymogul.com/podcast and leave us an iTunes review, because I love them. You'd make me feel real special. Right, Ryan? iTunes reviews, right?
Always,
They're good.
always iTunes reviews.
They're good stuff. We'll be back next Monday with another incredible origin story. Thank you guys so much for listening, and thank you, Ryan.
Thanks, man.
Now we can talk
Yeah, you suck. Oh, no, I'm still recording.
Oh, no, me too.